Let's go back to the large hospital room. Huh? Why would we go back? Well, I mean, we might have just missed him, you know? Maybe he really was just late. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Okay, let's go. They turned and ran down the hallway to their right. On their way to the large hospital room, Junpei and June noticed Santa, standing next to the door number 3. Junpei paused. What should Junpei do? He's fine. I don't think he looks suspicious. Shut up, Junpei, you're not me. Junpei turned around and walked away from Santa. There was nothing he'd learned from talking to him anyway. Junpei took June and left the large hospital room. Let's go take a look around the casino. Okay. They quickened their pace and headed for B-Deck. Before they knew it, they were there. So was Lotus. She was leaning against the wall, examining her nails. Hey, what do you think you're doing? She glanced up at him unimpressed. Isn't it obvious? I'm looking for Snake. No, it looks like you're just doing your nails. That's not looking for Snake, unless Snake is on your nails. And then we should just call off the search because you already found him. I'm just not saying it. Really? Maybe you need to look harder. Junpei didn't think that was the problem. Oh, by the way, I've got a proposal for you two. Care to hear it? I didn't ask for this. Fine. What do you have to say? What is it? Well, I don't like to beat around the bush, so we'll get right to it. Why don't we team up? Team up? Yeah, what? You need me to explain it to you? I'm saying, why don't we go through a numbered door? Even if we wanted to, it's impossible. Why? Junpei's bracelet is 5, mine is 6, and yours is 8. Our digital route would be 1. There's no numbered 1 door in the large hospital room. The only doors there are 3, 7, and 8. Then we add another person. Huh? Who? What? Isn't that easy? 7. She was right. If they added 7, math, then the 4 of them could go through the numbered 8 door. But, well, hold on a sec. What about the other 4? Why don't you add them up? Noticeable enough? Math. The digital route for those 4 would be 1. That's right. And you know the numbered 1 door is in the big hospital room, right? Of course I know that. No, are you saying you'd leave them behind? Of course not. What kind of woman do you think I am? Once we get off the ship, we could come back and rescue them, couldn't we? Then we wouldn't really be leaving them behind. Don't try to lie to us. I don't think you'd do anything of the sort. Really? Why do you think that? You remember, don't you? We have less than 5 hours left. Even if we manage to escape, there's no way we could come back to rescue them in less than 5 hours. Well, you never know until you try. That is a pretty good reason, an argument, and all that kind of stuff. Lotus, you are the master debater here. I just can't stand up to you, jeez. No, you're not thinking this through. Even if we brought 7 with us, we wouldn't be able to get off the ship. The 4 of us couldn't open door 9. Exactly, you're dumb! It is hidden, but an exit can be found. Seek a way out. Seek a door that carries a 9. Yeah, that's right. The digital route for us would be 8, so we'd have to add Ace to make 9. Right. Unless we bring Ace 2, we'll be stuck. Lotus scratched the back of her ear. Oh, Well, that's unfortunate. She didn't sound particularly bothered by what Junpei said. Nor did she seem particularly surprised. Well, let's try to find another way, okay? We get a way to get out of here with all 8 of us. That's impossible. Are you being serious? You do know that only 5 people at most can go through one of the numbered doors, right? The number 9 door isn't going to be an exception to that rule. Regardless, at least 3 people will get left behind. You're right. That is true. The moment he said it, Junpei felt a chill run down his spine. It was true. How Lotus could remain cavalier about so terrifying a prospect was beyond him. When they found the number 9 door, they would have to choose which 3 of them would die. Lotus's forehead furrowed. Do you think I could have a moment alone? There are some things I need to think about. And not look for Snake or Clover. God. Junpei and June turned and began walking away from Lotus. Talking to her had left them feeling ill. Junpei's heart felt heavy, and his steps sluggish. But he told himself pessimism would get them nowhere. So he forced himself to smile and turn to June. Let's just focus on finding Snake for now, okay? Yes, you're right. We can think about those other things later. Junpei nodded. Alright, where should we go next? Are we already on B-deck? So let's just go here. Let's go take a look at the first-class cabin. It's really close. They turned around and took off down the hallway to their left. Outside of the first-class cabin, they found Clover. She was standing in front of the wall. Well, we found Clover. Mission accomplished. Oh, wait. We need to find the blind one. She was staring at a meaningless point on the wall, her eyes blank. What should Junpei do? If I talk to her, she's liable to go off on me. So let's talk to her. Are you alright? He did his best to sound friendly, but Clover didn't respond. Look, I know you're really worried, but, you could think of no words to say that didn't sound hollow and vague. Junpei hesitated. Clover was so consumed by worry and fear that Junpei feared it would crush her. Her actions didn't surprise him. She had suddenly lost her brother, who she seemed to have been very close to. Alone. Her voice was thin and barely audible. Lone. Lone. I said leave me alone. No, you didn't. You said lone. Suddenly she was screaming. You are so annoying. Just go away and leave me alone. Just looking at you guys is pissing me off. Go away, okay? Just go somewhere else. Stop bothering me. Junpei was taken aback. Such anger and hate. June's eyes had gone wide with surprise as well. Why are you still here? Didn't you hear me? Fine. Forget it. If you aren't going to leave, then I'll just... Alright. Let's go, June. Yeah. Well, that was productive. They turned and left Clover. As they did, Junpei glanced back over his shoulder to see Clover wiping tears from her face. Clover had driven home the misery of their situation, but Junpei told himself that getting depressed would get him nowhere but depressed. For Clover's sake, they had to find Snake, and fast. He did his best to push away the misery and depression and forced a smile. So, where do you think we should go next? We already went to the casino. Man, I don't really think Snake's around here anymore. Let's head back to the large hospital room. Right, that's probably the best idea. Together they ran down the stairs. There's no one to be seen. What next? Let's finish. They looked everywhere they could think of, but Snake was nowhere to be found. Lotus looked around at 6 frustrated faces and spoke. We can't keep looking for Snake. Wherever he is, it's not here. We need to get moving. Junpei couldn't disagree with what she was saying. Snake seemed to have completely disappeared. There was no point to wasting any more time. The others seemed to be having similar thoughts, but they stayed silent. Finally, someone spoke. We don't got a choice. Lotus is right. We're not going to find Snake. There's a problem, though. We've got to figure out who's going to go through which door. Yes, I have a proposal. She walked back and forth across the floor, her heels clicking against the wood. Finally, she stopped. Why don't we decide on one person to sacrifice? Sacrifice? Well, perhaps that's a bit of a harsh word, but yes. You've all figured it out by now, haven't you? We can't all make it through those doors. We split into 2 teams of 4 and 3 people respectively, then 3 people will be left behind. When we split into 2 teams of 5 and 2 people respectively, then 2 people will be left behind. But if we split into 2 groups of 3 and leave 1 person out, then only 1 person will be left behind, leaving behind 3 people with 2 teams of 4 and 3. Going by this math, it's the only thing that works. It wasn't pleasant, but she was right. There wasn't any way that the numbers worked out. If one group was 4, the other group would always have a digital group that didn't match a door. When Seven spoke, his voice was strained. You're saying we gotta decide who's gonna stay behind? Yes, we do. Given our circumstances, it's logically and morally the best solution. If the other 6 were to survive, then 1 person has to sacrifice themselves. No, that's too cruel. What's so cruel about it? To just sacrifice someone like that? And what's your plan? Maybe we should sacrifice 2 people instead of just 1. That's not what I meant. We shouldn't sacrifice anyone. I told you. That's impossible. Wake up. Whoa, calm down, you two. Santa stepped between Lotus and Clover. What Lotus is trying to say is that you should aim to bring the greatest amount of happiness to the greatest amount of people, right? Exactly. That's how democracy works. And for that reason, I think the only fair way to decide who will be sacrificed is through a vote. What do you think? No, that's terrible. I'm not asking you. Shut up. You just did. Shut up. What about you, Santa? Me? I agree, I guess. Alright, that's 1 vote for. Counting mine, that's 2. 7? I can't say I agree with you. We don't exactly have a choice. If we don't do something, we're all gonna die. Glad to see you get it. If I can get 1 more vote, then it's decided. What about you, Clover? Clover had moved away from the group and was sitting on one of the beds. Her whole body drooped. Junpei didn't know if she'd even heard Lotus's proposal. Lotus walked over to Clover and gently laid a hand on her shoulder. Your brother has to be behind one of the numbered doors. We searched everywhere, but we didn't find him. Doesn't that mean he has to have gone through one of them somehow? Clover slowly lifted her face. Let's go look for him together, okay? If we sacrifice 1 person, then we can go look for him. You agree with me, right? Clover nodded once. The motion carries. Lotus spun around and walked toward Junpei. Now, let's start a vote too. That won't be necessary. Ace had barely spoken for Lotus's entire speech, and everyone jumped on him. 6 pairs of eyes turned to look at him. He didn't seem to notice or even care. I will stay. That should solve her problem, yes. Ace, what are you saying? No, you can't do that. That won't solve anything. June's voice shook, and she looked around desperately for someone to agree with her. He simply looked at her. June, I'm afraid you may have misunderstood me. I said I would stay, but I never said I would sacrifice myself. Huh? I trust you, each and every one of you. I believe you'll come back for me. Whoa. There's optimistic and then there's just nuts. Those doors only go one way. You go in, you don't come out. If we go through one, you won't be able to return, correct? Yeah. True, but that will not be the case once you've escaped from the ship. I have a question now. What about that non-numbered door? We don't know what that is. What? Please, I beg you. Once you've escaped, come back and rescue me. Ideally within the time limit Zero has given us. No, That's ridiculous. There's no way we could get back in time. Finally, Junpei could hold his tongue no longer. We've only got 5 hours left. We don't even know where we are. How on earth are we gonna go find someone to come and rescue you? And perhaps you would prefer to stay instead of me. Or perhaps you would be willing to leave June behind. Ace's voice was dignified, and without a hint of cruelty or malice. Junpei had no rebuttal. You see, there's no other choice. And I see we've come to our conclusion. Come on. Don't worry yourselves about me. Go. Quickly. Junpei stood frozen by indecision, unable to move. June bit her lips so hard that Junpei feared she would break the skin. Santa stood against the wall, calm and aloof. Seven tore his beanie from his head and turned it over anxiously in his hands. Only Clover stared at Ace with an expression Junpei was unable to decipher. Lotus's attitude, however, was different from the others. Good. Let's accept his kind offer then. She smiled, her eyes bright. Ace answered with a smile of his own. Good. I think this is for the best. Perhaps I'll be able to take a nap. Perhaps it's my age, but I get so tired these days. As he spoke, Ace lowered himself down on the floor next to one of the beds. Why don't you go on the bed, not the floor? There's a bed, right? You're like on a bed right now. Why are you going to the floor? From somewhere deep in the ship, Junpei suddenly heard the screeching of metal on metal. It was almost as if the ship was screaming. Would it really hold until their time limit was up? Already, D-Deck was flooded. In the sudden silence, the only sound was the sad metal wail of the ship. Unsurprisingly, it was Lotus who spoke first. Well, what are you waiting for? We're wasting time. Why don't we hurry it up? As if a spell had been broken, the others all began to talk at once. You're right. We should get going. That's all we can do right now. 7. Seriously. Honestly. I was getting kind of sick of listening to you guys talk. You too, Santa? I have to find my brother. Wait, all of you. Let's just calm down and think about this. There has to be a way to get everyone out. There has to be. Right, Junpei? Say something. Yeah, let's think. There's gotta be another way. His words sounded hollow and fake. Fine. Forget about it. I'll figure it out on my own. She spun around and ran toward Ace. He had slumped down next to the bed when June grabbed his arm and pulled him. Come on, Ace. Please, stand up. You can't give up yet. We just have to sit down together and think about this. We'll figure out a way that we can all get out of here. Then it happened. Though he dead. No. Ace fell forward. He slumped over into the wooden floor, his body folded in half like a boxer out cold. Ace! June cried out and dropped to her knees beside him. She put her arm around his neck and did her best to lift him up. What happened, Ace? Say something. She shook him, frantically. His eyes fluttered open. Oh, he's a zombie. Get away from him. His voice was weak and slightly slurred. How are you? Fine. This. He held out his left arm and slowly opened his hand. And it was a syringe and a small vial. The vial was empty. It had only recently been emptied. A few drops clung to the sides. There was a label taped to the side of the container. It read Soparil Beta. Soparil Beta? Junpei had no idea what it meant or what kind of medicine it might be. Didn't you use this? Yes. It's just anesthetic. I'll be fine. Anesthetic? I found it earlier, while we were searching the hospital rooms. I thought it might be useful later. I didn't think I'd be using it on myself. Why did you do this? Didn't I tell you? I'd like to take a nap. I really am very tired. Junpei knew that wasn't why he'd done it. Ace had injected himself with anesthetic to forestall Junpei and June's attempts to bring him along. If he couldn't move, there was nothing they could do. Well, it's more June's attempt to bring him along. Junpei didn't do anything. He injected himself so that they would be forced to leave him behind. Ace. Is there something you want to say? I'd just like to sleep. A little. Could you keep it down? No! Don't, Ace. Don't fall asleep. You feel warm. Whoa. So comfortable. Whoa. Back off. Hey, Ace. Old pervert. Ace's eyelids drooped further and further, almost as though he were dying. Ace. 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 She shook his shoulder again and again, but this time he didn't respond. Only the gentle rising and falling of his chest told him he was alive. Junpei was relieved to see he was in fact still breathing. He lifted Ace up off the floor and laid him on the bed he'd been leaning against. When Junpei turned around, Lotus gave him a look of pity. Well, we really don't have a choice now. We can't let a sacrifice go to waste, right? She wasn't feeling any remorse. Junpei was sure of that. Still, he held no grounds upon which to oppose her. It felt wrong, but he had to agree. Then suddenly Santa spoke. Yeah, but we're not done choosing yet, are we? What do you mean? Well, we haven't decided who's going in what door. Yes. Yes, that's true. Well, enough of this screwing around. Let's decide. You first, Lotus. Which door do you want? I want door number 8. It's the same number as my bracelet number. Got it. You're 8. You're next, 7. Which one do you want? I'll take 7. I can't get along with that old lady. What? What did you just say? Her face distorted by rage, Lotus took a step towards 7. He threw up his hands and made a face like a child caught with his hand in the cookie jar. You're gonna get it next time. She shot him a glare that would have melted steel, then turned off and stopped off. Alright, who's next? Santa's gaze moved across the 3 people left. Finally, they stopped on Junpei. Junpei, which door do you want? At last. It's my time to shine. Junpei's mind was already made up. I want door 8. I think I'm gonna go with door 8. Okay, 8 it is. Yeah. Alright then. That means June's gotta go through 7. What? Why? What? Santa grimaced and muttered angrily to himself, but finally began to explain. The 6 of us are gonna keep going without leaving anyone behind. There are only 3 ways we can do it. Plan A, go through 7 with 358, and go through 8 with 467. Plan B, go through 7 with 457, and go through 8 with 368. Plan C, go through 7 with 367, go through 8 with 458. And that's it. Those are our only options. In other words, 3 and 4 and 8, 7 and 8 can never go through the same doors. You get it now. As Santa finished, June looked over at Junpei, tears welling up at the corners of her eyes. Oh no, you're saying we aren't going to see each other again for a long time. Junpei felt just as June did. He wanted to be at her side through whatever trials they were preparing to face. But he knew if they were to survive, he had to swallow his feelings. In order for the 6 of them to move forward, he and June had to be separated. He looked at June. He was scared to lose her, but he swallowed, steeled his resolve, and did his best to smile. Hey, come on. You're making it sound like we're never gonna see each other again. We gotta split up, but only for a while. This is just like when we went into 4 and 5 doors, remember? We got split up then too, but we all met back up. I'll bet 7 and 8 are just like that. You mean they're connected somewhere? Yeah, Probably. Probably? She didn't sound very hopeful. It was Seven that interjected. I'm sure they're gonna connect somewhere. Why? What makes you think so? If they don't connect, neither team can get through door 9. In other words, the game would end right here. Zero's been on top of his stuff so far. I don't think he'd blow it now. I'm sure he just wants to have his fun as long as possible. He's not going to end this game until we get through 9 door. June said nothing. The tears were gone, but her eyes were still sad as they looked at Junpei. He met them, and with that what reassurance he could manage, he laid his hand gently on her shoulder. Everything's gonna be fine. We're gonna see each other again, I promise. June bit her lip and gave him an almost imperceptible nod. Yes. Promise? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Santa's voice shattered the moment, because he's a jerkbag. Oh, he just jealous. He just jealous because he ain't got no girl to be all like, hey, I promise. I promise you. You promise me? No? Okay, whatever. You guys done, right? He stretched and continued. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Clover and I will both go into separate groups. I figured it'll take 7 and Clover to take... I'll take 7, and Clover can take 8. Any problems with that, Clover? Clover looked away and was silent for a moment. Whatever. It was more of a dismissal than an agreement, but Santa didn't seem to care. Well, I don't want to go through with Clover. She freaking told me off. Jeez. Rude. Let's move. At Santa's command, the group split and headed for their respective doors. Santa, 7, and June walked through door 7, while Clover, Lotus, and Junpei headed for door 8. For a long moment they stood in front of the door. Then Lotus laid her hand against her chest and turned to Junpei and Clover. Are you ready? Yeah. Yes. Then shall we go? The door had opened. The narrow hallway stretched out before them. Lotus and Clover leapt through the door. The moment they did, their bracelets beeped. The detonators in the bracelets had been activated. Junpei stepped forward to follow them. But as he was about to step over the threshold, he stopped. He looked to his left, toward door 7. June stood there, a mirror image of Junpei. She turned and looked toward him. Their eyes met. They nodded. Their farewell took almost 1.5 seconds. Then someone took hold of Junpei's arms and hauled him bodily through the door. He heard the sound of the numbered door slam shut behind him. His bracelet gave a cold electronic beep. 81 seconds left. Hurry. Lotus snapped at him and ran to the dead. Junpei and Clover followed her as fast as they could. It stopped. With a shaking hand, she wiped a few beads of sweat from her forehead. Clover, however, was calm, aloof perhaps. Pointless. She muttered to herself without emotion and began to walk down the hallway, leaving behind a confused Junpei and Lotus. Lotus watched the girls receding back with a mix of frustration and curiosity. What an unpleasant girl. I bet she's not very popular with the boys. Oh, okay. Her sarcasm seemed a little more biting than was perhaps necessary, but she sighed and started after the younger girl. After taking a moment to catch his breath, Junpei followed. The hallway made a number of turns before at last coming to a dead end. Set into the wall on the left side was a large iron door. For a few minutes, they stood in front of the door examining it. Above the door was a plate with the word laboratory engraved on it. We're going into Dexter's lab. Yay! A laboratory, huh? That doesn't sound very pleasant. I don't like the look of this place. Me either. But there aren't any other doors. It's not like we have a lot of choices. Junpei. Please, you first. Oh, whoa, ladies first. Excuse you. Junpei suspected her politeness was motivated by something other than respect. Junpei muttered to himself and pushed open the iron door. His first steps inside were tentative and careful, but as he examined the room, it became clear that there was no imminent danger. Lotus followed him in, and Clover brought up the rear. The room they found themselves in was divided into two separate areas by a curved wall. A thick glass window built into that wall made it possible to see into the other side of the division. Junpei walked to the window and looked through. What the... He wasn't sure what else to say. This looks kind of familiar. For some reason. In the center of the room, shaped like a quarter circle, a mannequin lay on what looked like a medical exam table. That looks so creepy. Junpei jumped a little. He hadn't noticed Lotus come up next to him. You don't think that thing is going to suddenly sit up or something, do you? Well, I don't know. I mean, look at all those cables sticking out of it. If we press the wrong button, I don't know. Stop it. Just thinking about it is terrifying. She was gripping her arms, the knuckles on her hands wide. It was then that Junpei noticed Clover. She was still standing near the entrance of the room. Her face had the appearance of a calm, but it was drawn and somehow sad. There was something almost pitiful about her. Junpei walked over to her and, as kindly as he could, spoke. Are you okay? Are you going to tell me off again? Clover looked away. What are you talking about? I'm just worried about you. You've been real quiet. What? I can't be quiet if I want to? Well, I mean, of course you can, I just... Okay then, if I can be quiet if I want, just leave me alone, okay? Okay, you're just going to tell me off again. Shut up. Come on, you know I can't do that. We gotta work together. Clover bit her lip and was silent for a moment, but suddenly... Junpei, you just don't get it. Her cry took Junpei by surprise, and he stumbled backward a few steps, alarmed. My brother's not the kind of person who would just leave me behind. Something happened to him. Something bad. Junpei had nothing to say. Lotus, jolted from her mannequin nightmares by Clover's voice, turned toward them. What happened? Clover's eyes slid to Lotus, then back to Junpei. Look, just don't bother me, okay? Leave me alone. Finished, she turned around. Before Junpei or Lotus could say anything, Clover had begun to walk quickly away. Hey, wait, Clover, hold on. He might as well have been talking to a wall, for all the notice she took of his cries. Not even slowing down, she made for a doorway cut in the wall in front of her. Without even slowing down, she passed through the doorway. Yep. I had a feeling that was going to happen. And without warning, an iron gate fell from the ceiling like a portcullis, sealing Clover in. What the heck? What's going on here? Clover grabbed hold of the iron bars and shook them as hard as she could. Hang on. I'll get it open. Junpei grabbed the bars and pulled. In a moment, Lotus joined him. The three of them pulled as hard as they could. Ah! Ugh. Grr. It's not moving. Wait. Are you just gonna give up? Just like that? No, I'm not giving up. This has gotta be another one of Zero's puzzles. If it is, then there's gotta be a way to open it. Junpei nodded. Just what was that? Yeah, just what I was thinking. Now all we gotta do is find it. Lotus and I can look around here. Clover, you're gonna have to see if you can find anything in there. Oh, yes, I'm on it. Reminds me of something that happens pretty much exactly in VLR.